Hi, I'm Dr. Shayna Skakoon-Sparling. I'm an incoming assistant professor of psychology at the University of Guelph, and I sit on the scientific advisory panel for the GenWell project.
So can you tell us about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. So I'm an applied social psychologist, which means that I apply theoretical concepts from social psychology to real world issues that impact health and well being. And a lot of my work is focused on the importance of social connection and how we need to feel this kind of sense of belongingness and connection with others, and how that need impacts the way that we make decisions related to our health behaviors. For example, one of the questions I look at is, does feeling more lonely lead folks to agree to having sex in ways that could increase their risk for STIs? Sex can be a great way to build and reinforce some kinds of social connection, but we want folks to agree to sex for these kinds of fulfilling reasons, not just to avoid negative feelings, because ultimately having sex for avoidance reasons isn't a sustainable solution to negative feelings or loneliness.
And of course, the global pandemic impacted all of us, but was the gay, bisexual, and men who have sex with men community impacted to a greater extent?
I mean, along with a lot of different sexual and gender minority groups, gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men, they were certainly severely impacted by the pandemic. And that's partly because these groups were already at greater risk for negative mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And these groups of people also tend to rely more on friendship networks than family for social support. And everybody was experiencing a lot of cutoff from their friendship networks, a lot of fracturing of their friendship networks during the height of the COVID pandemic. So if your friends are your major source of social support and social connection, and your friendship networks are all fractured, that's a big problem. We also know from some of the literature that's been coming out that sexual minority men also lost access to a lot of in-person venues where they typically would have had opportunities to build friendship networks and seek social support. And some were basically forced back into the closet if they had to return to living with their families. So this definitely was a group that was pretty severely impacted.
And as the pandemic becomes an endemic, are there any lingering issues that will impact this community, and how can they be best addressed?
I think it's difficult to say yet. Like, I mentioned the importance of friendship networks for sexual and gender minorities, and many people are still finding that their networks are a bit fractured. But we also know that lots of folks developed new ways to connect and feel a sense of connection during the pandemic. So I think we'll need to keep watching and learning from everybody as time goes on. But one thing we've already seen is that sexual activity is way down in our cohort study that we're running, the Engage cohort study. We saw a big drop in the first year of the pandemic, and people still haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels of sexual activity. So this could be an indication that social and sexual networks are still quite fractured. On the other hand, some of our team's qualitative work suggests that guys have been seeking out alternative arrangements like open relationships with trusted partners. So even though they're not having sex with as many different people or as many new people as they used to, they're still pretty sexually active, just with like a smaller circle. So we know that at least some people, even though they have fewer sex partners, they're not necessarily feeling a lack of social connection. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done to figure out what's going to happen long term, and what we need to watch out for and what kind of supports are needed.
As a member of the General Project Scientific Advisory Panel, how do you stay socially connected?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm really fortunate. I have a pretty good network of friends and family, both locally and remotely. I moved during the pandemic, and I also had a baby during the pandemic, and so I was really lucky to be able to connect online with a bunch of other new parents in my neighborhood, and we regularly get together in person. I think we get together like once a month to go for drinks, and we get together weekly for like song circle stuff. So there's kind of like unique access to social contacts that I have through being a new parent, but also through finding these groups. I mean, I always kind of joke when I teach about health psychology and teach about the importance of social connection. I joke about how I always have friends and family in my pocket, because literally, like, they're in my pocket, like they're in my phone. I have like a whole bunch of running group chats with my parents, with my in-laws, with different groups of friends. And that's also like a great way that I find to stay socially connected. Like, especially when I was a new parent, it was really nice to be able to reach out to some of my friends that were more experienced parents and be like, is this a normal thing? Like, I don't know. And like I had friends I hadn't connected with in years who knew that I had just had a baby, who were like reaching out to say, hey, how are you feeling? Are you okay? So I feel really lucky to have the kinds of resources that I have for social connection.
And what would you say are your three best tips for others to improve their social health?
Oh, I was thinking about this, and I really only have 2 tips, but I feel like one of them is so big that I feel like it counts for 2. Like, and that one is that you have to make an effort. So my tip is to make an effort. I think very few people can expect to have other people in their life always be the ones to initiate social connection. So it's important to remember you have to take your turn, and you have to be prepared to be the one to invite others to get together, or you have to be the one to take the initiative to seek out people with similar interests. And if that means like contacting your friend to say like, let's get together for coffee, even though like the last time you contacted them they were busy, like you have to do it again because they might be really busy and want to connect with you, but they need you to ping them to remind them. It's important to do things like make the effort to join a club or join a casual sports league or show up at trivia night and talk to people and introduce yourself. People can feel really shy, but you have to put yourself out there. I mean, it's easy for me to say this. I'm a bit of an extrovert. Like, I joined virtual parent groups in the neighborhood, and then I'm very active in the group chat, and then that gives me access to more social connections. So if you can pretend to be an extrovert, research studies suggest that you will benefit the same as somebody who is, I don't want to say naturally an extrovert, but like somebody who that's kind of like their default approach. So but I feel like that's such a big effortful thing. I'm going to count that as 2 tips because it's like so much. And then my other big tip is to make appointments. I really hate it when I'm talking to somebody and I haven't seen them in a while and they're just like, oh, we should totally get together sometime. And I'm like, sometime? Like, can we like put this, let's make an appointment. Like, can we do this? Like, vague plans lead to nothing. Check your schedule, get something in the books, and actually do the thing and get together. We should totally go for coffee. I'm free Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon next week. How about you? And you get it in your calendar, and then you actually see that person. So I feel like that's like a little piece of like making the effort, like make an appointment. That's a great way to improve your social health and maintain your social connections with other people.